activity to be done, and I'll use the word curation over a lot today, but that's a real catch-all for someone, taking a request to answer a question, or maybe to write a definition, or to build a report, or to review a quality issue, or to determine the policy attributes on a data system, or catalog a new, inventory a new data system, whatever these things may be. The first kind of level of activities is to say, what are the requests and content types that are happening, and what's sort of the distinct expertise that needs to be involved in each step. So you have a new glossary term that needs a functional definition. That's a particular type of expertise. You have a policy attribute that needs to be reviewed on a report. That's a particular type of expertise. You have a data quality issue that needs resolution. That's a particular type. Maybe but within a data quality issue, you might have both a functional and technical stuff, like someone saying, well, what is the data quality rule here? What does that apply to? And then someone's like, oh, I need to clean up the data as another step. So you want to sort of lay these out. Now, the point here is you don't have to go and lay these out for all, like we had like 15 different types of contents and requests. Think about what's the most critical ones, but sort of lay this out and decide how granular you want to get and how broad you want to get. But it's important to understand, if someone has a question, do you know where to route it? So that's the first thing. Now, the second piece then is in domain. So you can have like your functional domain. So, oh, this is human resources, or this is finance, or this is sales data. Right? And so you can a lot of people just start off with only this. Oh, I have a finance data and sales data steward. But is that specific enough that, if I just have a data steward or data steward role for sales data, is that same person going to be able to do a process data quality issue, or to determine a policy, or to write a definition, or to build a new report, or to grant access to a data table, or whatever the request might be? Maybe, maybe not. So that you have to think about what that is. Now, you might sort of have these people take on a little bit of a triage role where they can go find experts, but that's something to think about. And then lastly, the other kind of domain or combination here is the data systems or tools. So you might be operating in the human resources area, but you might have a payroll system that's different from your talent system, that's different from your data warehouse, that's different from feed to finance, and you may have very specific expertise on that. So you might need to know, like, oh, who's the data warehouse person, or who's the person who really knows the Tableau report, and who's the person who really knows the integration tool. And then you can decide if you really want to get detailed to combine these things. Oh, someone who's going to focus on data quality issues in the human resources area in the data warehouse is different than the person doing data quality issues in the human resources area in the transactional system. Whether that's a good idea or bad idea is up to you, but we're going to talk about it. So a quick way to do this is to create sort of a matrix. So you can define a really simple matrix. I really recommend sort of these, at the minimum, these three high levels, sort of a functional expertise, technical expertise, and policy expertise if you're dealing with policies right now. And then go through the functional areas and say, oh, if we've got issue with customer data or sales data or human resources, what do we want to roll, and what would that role be for the functional activities that need to be done, and the business type of activities. And that can be inclusive of a lot of things, like, writing business glossary definitions or defining reports, those types of things. So that's a pretty generic high-level thing, and if you got those roles defined, now you might have individuals who are both, who can do all three of these things in the human resources area. Just because you have one person who can do that, I wouldn't necessarily decide that that's one role, because that person could leave, or you might have to have other people involved when that person's not there. So a person can be in more than one role, but I would just sort of focus now on what's the unique kind of combination of skills that you need to deal with these things. This is a relatively simple matrix. And here's one that's more complicated. So we're breaking this down by different content. So rather than, if it's a glossary issue or a report issue or an ETL issue, and then for each of these functional areas, is it functional or policy, or is it, and what system or tool does it belong to? So you can kind of build out these grids, and they can get pretty complicated if you want. So I would highly recommend that you go all the way back to our first roadmap discussion, where you decide, like, what's the most important things to deal with, and focus mainly on those at first. But the point here is to decide, like, ask yourself, if someone has a question about this thing in this particular area on this particular system, do we have a role defined by that, and do we need a unique role for that, or can it be can we have a role that's sort of inclusive of a broader area? All right, so now we've defined those responsibilities. Now we want to fill in the role. So once you've got those responsibilities defined out, you realize, hey, we need someone who can handle functional issues in the human resources area. We're going to create an HR functional steward role that's different than our HRIS technical steward. So this is more tied to the data system there. It's different from the, and then we'll say that the functional stewards can do the policy things. So maybe make that call. All right, so we're kind of putting these roles in this chart. So we've said, oh, in filling this in, we realize that we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need 5 roles right now, like that we know we can define. And we probably need more, but I'm sort of like, I don't know if I've got anyone to put in that, or I want to do that. So you can start off just by filling these in. And now you might say, this is a broken system. Like, how can you do this without these? If someone comes in with an issue about the functional problem with the customer data, are we going to be able to do that because we only have policy stewards over here? Well, that's where we highly recommend that you can fill in these gaps with sort of an oversight or triage support role. So, if you create a generic data governance role that has, one-to-many folks associated with that, whose primary job is, to use a baseball term, like the utility infielder, who can take a request that's come in, take a look at it. They're not necessarily going to be the one that's going to answer it. Maybe they have that expertise, but more importantly, they're going to go out and find the right expert within your organization to answer that question, who maybe is not at all engaged yet in being a steward or bought into being a steward, and you can pull them in to help answer this question, and then use that as an opportunity to recruit them to be a steward later if you want. But if you have this oversight team role, you can really fill that in. And frankly, you can start off with everything goes to the oversight team role, and then then they can go find collaborators. That might be what you do in the first month or whatever of doing this. But as you start getting defined roles, you want to start filling that in. So that's something that we recommend. Now, another thing you could do is you could create these steward roles, have defined roles, and just put your oversight team members in them until you've got something. That's a choice you can make. Like if it's important to you to have all these named steward roles now, so that you can put someone in them when you find the right person, or to maybe you don't know if you're going to need something until it happens, and then just you can just have that go to your oversight team and then pull that in. But you just need to sort of have this matrix.